Is
that better?
Yeah.
I've had to refresh my makeup. I looked as rough as out.
Right.
I didn't tell everybody that.
It's gone 7 o'clock. So good evening, everybody. Could you please put your machines onto mute so that we don't get any background noises that's going to interrupt what we're doing, or anybody coming in, or phones ringing, or anything like that.
Hold on. I've got a problem here. Start video.
Stephen Nixon, could you put your machine on mute, please? I recognise your voice.
Thank you, mate. Good evening, all.
Yes, just quieten yourself. Thank you. That's very good.
Evening.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to everybody. This is the first one of this year, first open forum of this year. Last one was just before in December, when I thought that we might be opening up for Santas, and having a meeting at that time would be very useful. But as we all know, it didn't quite work out as we wanted. I set a date for tonight because I thought that we would be getting information on February the 15th to tell us what was going to happen. That was delayed by a week. We will find out in a few moments whether the company have managed to put together enough plans based on what was said this week by the big man down south, and whether we can run trains at what time and when. And where we go from here, I'm anticipating that we will probably have another meeting, maybe late March, before, maybe late April, sorry, before anything big might happen, but we'll just see. We've got a number of questions that have come in. There's one or two that I've had to abbreviate slightly because there was a particular long one. I'll come to those afterwards. We're going to see a little bit of a film and then a presentation and then questions. If you want to make a point, please use chat to me particularly so that I can respond to it. I've only got 25 people on my screen, but there are 90 of you logged in. So obviously I can't see everybody at the same time, but we'll start now, and then afterwards we'll do the question and answers. If you've got questions to put, please put them through chat, and then I can put them onto my sheet. The whole video is being recorded, so please watch your language and watch what you say. And I will put it out on my YouTube channel for viewing probably tomorrow, and I will circulate through Hops for those who want a link to it so they can see it, and those who are not present to be here tonight. I will also do a transcription of the discussion and put that out on by text on Hops over the weekend when I've gone through how much or whatever we say this evening. So without further ado, am I handing over to you, Kath?
Yeah. I just say a few words first. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this ELR forum. As Mike said, it's really an opportunity to look back and to look forward, really. I think it's been a year to forget 2020, but I felt we needed to somehow mark it as a milestone in the history of the ELR. After all, you know, it's now 2021. So I've been in touch with Democracy, the company that's been looking after all our press releases, and a short video together just to perhaps remind us the kind of year that we've just come through, and some of the images that we all will remember when you see them. Also the key milestones, and it felt at times like a roller coaster. It was a very uncertain time. So this short video, our thanks go to Democracy for putting it together. So if I hand it over to Kath, here we go. Okay, everybody. What we'll just to mark a moment in our history, I guess. Maybe we'll look back in a few years' time and wonder what the fuss was all about. But again, thanks to democracy. What we want to do now is a presentation together with myself, Tracy, and Kath. A quick look back at 2020, put some meat on the bones. What did it really mean? And what you're seeing with the video is just those key milestones. Clearly, if you've got any questions on the video or the presentation, I'm sure Mike will deal with them at the end of the presentation. So if we could move the next slide, please. What we're going to cover tonight for everybody on the forum is we're going to look at the financial performance. What did it mean for us? Where were the dodgy moments? How did we do with grants and donations? Face value, I'm going to explain some of the intricacies and some of the bureaucratic red tape wrapped around them. Really, we need to spend a bit of time tonight to talk about 2021 and what does it mean now that we've got the roadmap, and Tracy will say a bit about that. And what's the future hold in terms of funding? Are we going to be totally dependent still on ticketing, or are there going to be other ways of looking at funding the railway for the future? So if we could go to the next one. I'll put this one in because I think sometimes people I talk to, most of the people I talk to just seem to whinge and shout at me. I get very few plaudits and very few pats on the back for the efforts that everybody's putting in. I think if you looked at this as what our values, this is the guiding principles of what I call a job description for the ELR board. And I think it is sometimes when the pressure is really on that we're still here. You know, we are the stewards of the railway. This is on our watch. It's our responsibility. And when we move off our perch and move away, others will come through and embrace these values. I think it's just a reminder to everybody connected with the railway what such a important role we play, an important custodian of 30 odd years worth of history and the generations that's gone for us. And when we hand it over, hopefully, you know, those values will still hold true as they've ever been. Kath? Tracy, just going to say a little bit about this one. I think before I hand over to Tracy, I learned a long time ago that if you're in a hole, stop digging. What we had with 2020, of course, is we didn't create the hole and we didn't do any digging. You know, it is what it is. And I'll just ask Tracy just to say a few words to this slide, really.
Okay, so I think we all are aware that 23rd of March last year, we went into National Knockdown Mark 1. And if anybody's noticed, I have a chef's hat on this evening, which has been beautifully acquired by Dave the Cat by sitting on the keyboard. But so we had National Lockdown 1 on the 23rd of March. And that actually put the railway into a level of dormancy where we furloughed as many employees as we could, and also any way that we could cut the cost in how we managed the railway, looked after it, secured the assets, looked after the actual business itself. We actually did not leave a stone unturned on that. So we actually rooted through the whole lot. We came out of it in July. I think all of us have been, should we say, a little wiser and a bit heavier for lockdown. But nonetheless, we've opened the pubs and then eventually reopened the railway in August. It took us a longer than normal or longer than anticipated to open the railway, purely because of the local COVID rate within Bury, and that kept fluctuating and going up and down. And anyway, we eventually opened in August and ran a good few successful weeks before we were placed in the 18th of October in Tier 3 for buffers, and then the 21st of October for Greater Manchester. So that had a significant impact on our pubs revenue. And also second lockdown 2 came in November with the biggest, I would say probably challenging event taking place at Halloween, which was absolutely superb for something that we'd actually managed to do within the tier 3 restrictions and comply with the regulations. Really successful event. Well done all involved. 5th of November lockdown 2 happened, and then of course we came out of lockdown 2 in tier 3, which basically meant we were unable to run passenger services. So it pulls one of our, I would say a quarter of our revenue stream for a normal year, which is the Santas, is wiped out. So we did Elfmas, Letters to Santa, which was a static event, really well received by the public. And at least it provided something for the children of the area to actually come and see Santa. So well done to all involved there. And we also resulted in a stockpile of significant number of presents and also mince pies. And I have to say that there was sterling efforts in the distribution to food banks, to the hospital, for the staff at the hospitals. One's gone to, quite a lot, I think 1,000 went to a project that was to do with providing Christmas dinner for the homeless. So massive, massive thank you to everybody for helping out with that. Other than that, 30th of December we went into lockdown number 3, and in total that runs to 110 operating days we lost in 2020.
Thanks, Tracy. Yes,
thank you, Tracy. So next slide is all about grants and donations. Obviously, since in the last 11 months, we've tried to pounce on every available grant that's been out there. Some we weren't eligible for, some we weren't necessarily successful with, but we were successful with these ones. Culture Recovery Fund Round 1. We were very lucky to be awarded £641,400. However, £504,000 of that was to go towards salaries between October 20 and March 21. At the time of the application, we were expecting the furlough to end at the end of October. So we were expecting to have the 100% cost of salaries to be incurred by ELR. As it was, furlough has been extended to the end of April. So we can't claim all of that £504,000 back through the Culture Recovery Fund, which means that we're actually probably only going to get about 354 grand. However, 354 grand is better than nothing. We may get more than that. We're still waiting to hear from Culture Recovery Fund. I've spoken to them again today, based on what we've incurred so far. The next one, Heritage Lottery Fund. We were awarded 194,300. We were advised that, I think, end of July, August time. We actually finally received the funds for that on the 8th of January this year. So it's one of those, together with the Culture Recovery Fund, we have to have incurred the costs before we can claim the money against it. We have to submit, obviously, evidence via invoices, etc., before we can draw it down. So it's that time lag that we were struggling with for a while, of knowing when we're going to actually have access to that cash. The next one, Julian Hans Rising Trust. This was a fantastic private fund that were inundated by hundreds of charities that wanted to draw down from this. We originally applied for twice that amount on there. I think about 176,000 actually, I think. And because we were so inundated with applications, they found they could only award 600 of them, but partially. And we were very lucky to be one of those 600. So that was fantastic. Bury Council have given us 34 grand over a number of different types of funds so far. Rothendale Council, similar, 33,750, and Rochdale, 10,000. I have to say thanks to Dawn Sexton. If you don't know, she's the East Lancs Railway Trust Officer based at Rochdale Council. She's helped with a lot of these grants. applications, and she's actually submitted another one today within a matter of 24 hours. Before I knew it was there, she'd done it and submitted it, which is £10,000 for the Lancashire County Council Tourism Fund. So we'll just fingers crossed see how that goes. So in addition to that, we've also obviously had a massive help from the LRPS. They donated 125,000. The crisis fund that we started last year raised 140,000 plus gift aid on those elements that are eligible. And we also had the auction and raffle, £11,000. There's also the current raffle that's going on, that's raffle that's been going out there for various things, which Mike Moore mentioned towards the end again, I think. But the grand total so far, £964,711. So, and hopefully, fingers crossed, more to come. We've got in the pipeline at the minute, we've got some local council grants in process, and also Culture Recovery Fund round 2, which we're eligible to apply for 320,000 on, which we have. Again, we might not, if we're lucky enough to be awarded it, we might not receive all that, but fingers crossed. Okay, so the next bit is the real life version of what's happened in 2020. So as you'll see in the next slide that I'm going to do, you're going to see revenues in 2020 have been down by 56% compared to 2019. Visitor numbers down by 86%. In 2019, there were 170,000. In 2020, 22,000, massive difference. Grants that you've just seen on the previous slide, totaling 964 grand. Refunds, you can see by that massive number, £1.2 million we've had of liability to pay back to people for advanced sales that we couldn't deliver. Now you can understand why that would have such an impact on our cash flow when you see a number like that, and we're only, a relatively small charity. So that's been a struggle for us to try and manage as and when it's come along. The various points when we've realised that we've had to postpone stroke cancel events on the railway. The draft numbers for 2020 is showing that we will have a loss of £810,000. Now that is incredibly massive. Obviously we're a charity, not for profit, we aim to break even, and most years we're there or thereabouts to break even. But there's no avoidance this year. Everyone's going to make a loss. It's very difficult, and we need to figure out over the coming years how we're going to claw that back, basically. And last but not least, we've had 13 posts that we haven't filled, so stroke made redundant, that unfortunately we had to do to streamline the business, make savings that were imperative to keep going, and it wasn't an easy decision to make, not a very nice process to go through, but unfortunately it did have to be done. So
Kath, before you move on, can I just raise a point? Keith Williams has just put a question about that last slide, and it is an interesting question. If visitors are down 86%, how come revenue's only down 56%?
Very good question. So obviously our complete business model has changed due to COVID-19. We've had to go outside, think outside the box about where we're going to find money to keep us going. So between many people on the management team and the board, we've looked at getting money, revenue from elsewhere. So storage within the works, third-party contracts, so getting work done on other people's private locos, carriages, etc. And the likes. We've got a few other contracts in the pipeline, which hopefully with any luck will come through and will be quite lucrative. So that's where, and also the other thing that is included in there, we'll just give it a little bit, is that it does have, we have to record within revenues the furlough monies that we get back. So the job retention scheme monies we have to record as revenue as opposed to going against the cost. So that contributes for a little bit of it too, if that helps.
Thanks. Yeah, I hope so.
So yes, so going back to revenue, as you can see here, so obviously the first couple of months in 2020, January, February were fairly typical months of the year. They are generally our quieter months in a normal year. Then of course March came and we got hit. People started getting nervous, and then we got hit with lockdown. We had to close. So if you look at the 2019 January to August, August being the point where we reopened the railway again, the change in revenue. So 2019, 2.4 million, 2020, 1.1 million, so down by 52% in that period. And if you look at the full year, again, 2020 still being draft numbers at the minute, but 2019 we got 4.3 million, and 2020 1.9 million, down by 56.5%. So you can see, as Tracy mentioned earlier, Santa's being a quarter of our revenue, that was knocked on the head and replaced with, so what would have been possibly a £1 million revenue generator became Elfmas, which was £45,000. So you can see the massive hit that we took there. Moving on to the loans, we managed to secure the government loan as soon as we possibly could. We put the application in and they were just finalising the T's and C's, and we managed to draw down the monies, I think, about the 5th of May 2020. We were able to draw down £400,000, and that was with the view, by the advice of our very helpful bank manager, to say we had to plan to not open, at that point, this was April time, to not open until the end of September. And we thought that was crazy really at that point, but we did. That's what we did. And when we managed to open the pubs in July and then the railway in August, we thought there's a little bit of silver lining here. And then of course, everything plunged back into tier 3s, tier 4s, and then lockdown again. So, you know, what was supposedly 400,000 that was going to be a massive help and save the railway, we had to use most of it. And of course, that also comes with an interest payments. So we don't pay any of the loan back for the first 12 months. So it's due to start being repaid in June this year, over 6 years. And that will incur 85k of interest approximately, depending on what the base rate is at the time. So then we also, before Christmas, in fact, during summer of last year, Mike approached the trust board and asked if there was an opportunity to be able to have available an interest-free loan of £300,000 for the railway should we need it, as an absolute massive, backup, hoping that we never would need to touch it. And of course, as we got to lockdown number 2, we started thinking and thought, actually, we're going to have to start drawing these funds down. Further conversations took place and meetings, and then eventually we did draw down the full 300,000 beginning of this month. So that's that. That's interest free, and that will be not repaid at all until the government loan is possibly repaid, or maybe the City of Wales loan, but that's up for negotiation at that point in time. And of course, the City of Wales loan is the one that we've had for a while, and it was the only loan we did have outstanding prior to COVID. We did take a payment holiday on it when we had the opportunity, I think from April to September, which has extended the life of the loan a little bit longer than it would have been, but it's now due to be repaid by May 2024. So you can see there we've got quite a high value of liabilities on the railway. But it's all required for survival. It is what we needed to do in order to keep the railway alive. And that's it from me, I think. Over to Mike.
Tracy going to do this one, yeah.
Bear with me. Right, so the financial pressure for the ELR in 2021 is really we've already drawn down the trust loan, but actually we need to be planning 3 years, if not 5 years, and 10 years further on how we're actually going to recover this position, because we've got loans and money that we owe to other organisations totaling just short or just over £1 million. So that's a considerable amount of consolidation that we've got to do there. We've got to sort out the losses for 2020, and effectively we've got to try and reduce the cost of the operational business by 20 and 30% roughly, to actually claw back as much profit as we can to actually rebalance these finances. We keep applying for grants, and one of the absolute things that it took me till about 3 weeks ago to actually sit down and understand the level of innovation that the business has gone through in the last 11 months. And there are 35 separate avenues of revenue generating activities that we've actually taken through innovation, clever thinking, knowing the right people to actually keep drip feeding that money into the pot. So we've got further work that we can do with that, some of which could be potentially quite lucrative. Others we've been dashed, the hopes have gone. That's how it works out. But we've just been absolutely solid committed to trying to find ways to bring in additional revenue. Doing railway sort of things. The grants, we've just got to keep going with those. They're massively resource intensive to apply for. Full credit for Dawn and Kath for even providing the financial situation for those grant applications, because they are massively time consuming. Funding appeals are still going on. Hint, hint, there is still a raffle going on, and I think there's 3 days left of it. So if you want a raffle ticket, get in there now. The prize is not to be bought. It's a footplate ride on Union South Africa. So hey, get in there. Really strong focus on maintaining infrastructure, traction and rolling stock. So we need to be fit to run, fit to present to the public, and fit for the future. And I think that's really evident when we're doing the track relay work at Irwell Vale at the moment. That's the first time that the railway has bought brand new rail, and that's come through funding through the Cultural Recovery Fund, which is a massive bonus to us, but that's a significant investment which hopefully will last us 20 to 30, if not 40 years. So brilliant improvements there. Traction and rolling stock. We've got some really exciting projects on the go, some of which that I am megally excited about, which will come to fruition in the long term. So it is all building that foundation, making 2021, really, we need to come back, and we need to come back bigger and better than ever. And I don't mean that in just terms of passenger growth. I mean in how we think and how we work and the innovation that's taken place. And let's hope that that continues. But the biggest factor of all is going to be consumer confidence, because we are a consumer business. And we need the people to be willing, feel safe and secure, come out and enjoy a family day out on the railway. And one of the big things that we're also doing this year is rebuilding the website, which is actually going to be pretty much focused on a visitor experience before they get to the railway, to purchasing tickets and coming and having a fantastic day out. So it's all positive stuff. We've done loads of things that we never thought 12 months ago that we'd be doing. And I think that's massive credit to everybody for sticking with it, for doing different things, and even coming up with different ideas that have been fed in. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is that we recruit, look after, nurture and develop the next generation of volunteers, and actually make them to represent our community and everybody. So it's all inclusive and not exclusive. And I think we've got big challenges on that, but it is an absolute massive driver for me. One of my big passions about getting as many people that are vaguely interested, sowing that seed in the brain, pulling them in, and then their life changes, because it did for me, and somebody invested that time in me. So we need to be doing that for the next generation.
Who's taking this one?
This is going to the first.
This is me and Mike.
No, sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, you win this one with me, Mike.
Yeah.
The top and bottom of it is, this is no individual performance or work activity that has taken us through this journey. It has literally been a monumental, massive effort. And it is going to be for the next 3, 5, 10 years to get us back to the position where we need to be. And we are all in it together. And it's really important that we understand how we control our own destiny by developing our financial situation to provide us with a sustainable future. And I think that's my big passion, is that we need to get all of this. It was chucked upon us. We've worked through it. We've developed crisis management techniques at midnight and come through the other side, but we need to be sustainable for the future. And it's how we adjust, work smarter to get more out of what we've got. And I think that comes down to the diversity of revenue streams. Rolling stock storage has been a big issue that we've been pursuing and looking at and working with partners to. So close and yet taken away just right at the end, but we're not going to give up. And it's looking for those like-minded partnerships and working with other people, and actually it developed, the relationships develop, because all of a sudden they go, actually, we had the conversation about that, but have you thought about this? And the next revenue stream comes in. So Mike, over to you.
Yep, thanks, Tracy. I think for everybody on the forum tonight, they'll have their own experience of the last 12 months or so. Probably none of us ever thought we would still be talking about it, but here we are. So I think as chairman of the board, we've had quite a lot of meetings during 2020, quite a lot of important decisions to make, and then they get overturned. So the future hopefully will be a little bit more certain. I think it's also important. We've got locomotives, rolling stock that need maintaining, they need restoring. And when you see the size of the loans that we've now got, the size of the debt we're carrying, is there any funds available at all for restoration projects? Carriage restoration, City of Wells in probably 2 to 2.5 years' time. We've got the crab in bits, etc., etc. And I'm asking the question, I'll ask this question at the ELR Society board meeting a couple of weeks back, is there a clear and significant role for the society to front funding projects that would help the railway? I just put 2 or 3 in there. We were very close pre-COVID to getting a new education centre built at Castlecroft. There was probably 50,000 on offer from grant funding, and the society had agreed to put 40-odd thousand in, and obviously that's all been washed away now. What's not to like about having a new facility at Castlecroft, and that could be the new location for society if Wells ever comes to fruition. Other things like, as I say, funding project, not physically funding it by the society, but perhaps the members being asked to contribute more, non-working members rather, those who pay their 45 quid a year for membership. So I think we've got to leave no stone unturned in the pursuit of third-party income. I think it's fair to say that the trust have been very supportive. It took a while to get there, and there was lots of bureaucracy that took a little bit of time to get past. But I think we have the support of the 3 local authorities. If you think a bit about it, it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? No chief exec, no leader of Rochdale, Bury or Rosendale wants to be sitting on an ELR that closes down for lack of support. So I think we continue to work with the 3 local authorities. There is a commitment to provide further support. Seems ironical to me, I still haven't got over it really, that was Bury Council who took our specials away, which forced us to go cap in hand the trust board. So it's still quite an upsetting situation because we've now got a £300,000 loan that we never really wanted. It is what it is. And I think one of the things that I find very hopeful for the future is we've got great volunteers, great staff. I'm sure we'll roll up the sleeves, and certainly in the next period, now that we've got a little bit of certainty going forward, we can start to rebuild the finances. And we've got to think about rebuilding the finances because that's the basis of everything. And hopefully, majority of our volunteers who've been away shielding and will come back and support us as we get into a period of normality towards the end of the year. So that's the presentation for tonight, Mike Moore. Happy to answer any questions if there are, and I'll hand the meeting back to you, Chairman.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Kath and Tracy. I've had a number of points come through on chat, but I've had some questions sent to me previous to today. I'll just call them up on my machine. We've had 4 questions particularly pertinent to stations, and stations are having their own meeting next Wednesday evening, which I'm going to put the questions to at that point. I will pass them on to Martin and Jeff, who will be in charge of the meeting next Wednesday. But I will briefly go through them for everybody's general interest's sake, and if anybody wants to chirp in with an answer that I'm not getting quite right, I'll be quite happy to have that. We are planning to run trains probably April, May time, at some time anyway. There will be a new fares manual, obviously, for 2021, but at this minute, as far as I know, nobody knows what the fares will be. I don't think they've been actually set for what we're going to get. Am I right there, Tracy?
Well, we're working through actually the massive amount of government guidance for when we can actually run, and we're pretty confident that we will have set in stone within the next week what that timetable and scenario is, and the fares have been looked at for 2021, so we are pretty much ready to go. I would say on a betting scale of things, we won't be first out of the blocks on operating trains, but we'll certainly take a steady approach to how we do it, because of course Easter's gone. We can't do anything at Easter, so that's a great shuffle. The great shuffle has happened with other activities, including Scotsman, so that's yet to be set in stone, confirmed, and we're not going to be the first railway out of the blocks, but we're just going to take a steady, gradual approach, and as soon as we can, we'll be opening the pubs on there or thereabouts after the 12th of April.
Thanks, Tracy. That basically has answered the next 2 questions. Peter Jones and Tony Burt were asking about Flying Scotsman, which is definitely cancelled for Easter. May or may not be on at another time. That's still under negotiation. And so that was Peter's and Tony's questions. We're asking about that, and residence permits and travel passes. They will be back in use when we can. Moving on, the 4th question came from Alex Karimi, who may or may not be in Switzerland listening in. I have not noticed his name on the board. I'll read it out. It's not too long. I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're Alex.
Hello.
Nice to see you, Alex. I have a question for the forum. He said on Friday, but it's today. It's about the trainee drivers and trainee firemen he knows at the ELR who've lost a whole year on the footplate because of social distancing. The question is, what is being done so they don't lose another year on the footplate? I don't know whether Lee or Jeff wants to make a comment about the trainees, the cleaners mainly, who've not had access to a footplate for about a year now.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's probably not a lot we can do. The restriction on the numbers were put onto us by the ORR, and until they lift that restriction, which will all be due to COVID, and when they can lift it, we'll start training. Obviously, there's nothing. If people haven't been trained for the last 12 months, there's not a lot we can do apart from give more opportunity. But it will all be dependent on the ORR giving us permission to have more than 2 people on a full plate, and also the COVID restrictions.
Well, I think we've got light at the end of the tunnel, though, because if all goes to plan, fingers crossed, COVID restrictions should lift on the 21st of June. So after you've been to Stonehenge and done your bit of druid worshipping, you'll be out on the footplate.
Okay. Alex, are you happy with that answer? That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. As long as you've got an answer. Moving on, we have a question about the museum, basically in two parts, from John Hume, who's speaking on behalf of other people who don't have access to Zoom. Has any progress been made regarding the roof leak? He understands that 3 quotes have been received. And then Peter Miller asks about the vehicles and exhibits insurance. Is it still up to date and valid under museum and ELR insurance cover? So it's a 2-part question.
Okay, the museum roof situation, we have 3 quotes in. We are actually trying to constructively use Cultural Recovery Fund money to get a full repair job done on that. I was in there on Saturday. It's pretty obvious where they are. It's plainly obvious. However, look, work is in progress on that one. And as soon as we can get it done, in line with the guidance that's come from government, it looks like the 17th of May is the earliest date that the museum will be able to open for the public in any case. So we've got a plan in place that's going to take us up a month's prep plan, but hopefully we'll be able to get the roof work done during that time. So that's that question. With regard to insurance, items that are actually in our building are insured for if the building collapses, catches fire, things like that. But as the individual object, if the individual object is privately owned, it is the responsibility of the individual who owns that to cover it for insurance purposes for all risk. But they are covered within our building by our insurance.
See, can I just follow that up? So what you're saying is, if the roof caves in and damages all the vehicles, the company insurance will cover those vehicles and exhibits. But if it's somebody entering, somebody breaking into the museum and vandalising it, then it's the private insurance of the individual that has to be up to date. Is that right?
What we can't do is insure somebody else's risk. So we couldn't insure somebody else's house if you live next door. So it's the responsibility of the individual who owns that vehicle to get insurance for the level of cover that they feel suitable for that vehicle. If there's an incident that's caused by our failure in terms of roof, in terms of flooding, in terms of building fire, the vehicles are covered by our insurance.
Right. I think that was the tenor of because of the roof leak situation, possibly damaging vehicles in the interim. That was one of the reasons that was asked this question. That's good.
I think we're a long way. I don't want to tempt fate. I really don't, because we've had enough of it in the last year. But we're a long way from. We've got leaks. We haven't got the situation where the roof's likely to collapse at any moment. Otherwise, we won't be letting anything in. So we'll remove that one. We've got roof leaks that are going to be attended to.
Okay, right. That's answering that question. Can I just have a very quick one that's come through this evening on the Facebook page? A guy's asked me about the event in Bury in August, which is called Glastonbury. It's a bit of a made-up name, I know. Are we involved in that from a point of view of the railway and or the museum? Do you know?
Not aware of anything at the moment. It's certainly been approached previously to be involved in it, but this time round, not aware of it so far. But look, we've only been known since Monday what the restrictions lifting were going to look like. So we've got a long way to go before August.
Yeah, this is in August, so it's a good excuse for I nearly said Facebook.
Yeah, an outdoor.
Sorry. Right. Okay.
I'll try and beep that out, John, when we put it out on the internet.
Sorry, Michael.
Yes. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, John.
Cheers, mate.
Moving on to another financial question, basically, from Stephen Holt. The company has had to make drastic decisions due to COVID, which has resulted in a reduced cash flow. we are all aware of the restructuring of the staff in the COVID situation. Has the company considered restructuring 36 Bolton Street, presumably moving the staff around and leaving part of the premises unused or returned? Kath?
Yeah. So we have considered looking at the lease for 36 Bolton Street head office. When we took on the second floor, we basically renegotiated the lease for the whole building. So when I approached Ian Parr a few months ago, probably summertime, who's the agent for the lease of 36 Bolton Street, he basically said, because we were looking to drop part of the head office, probably top floor, he said you actually wouldn't save anything by doing that because we got such a discount by doing all 3 floors together that it would probably incur more costs through amending the lease agreement an early stage via solicitors' fees, etc. And we probably won't save much in rent going forward. So we did look at that. It was an idea, and we could still happen if we wanted to, and he's left that open if we do want to, but it won't make any sort of great shakes as far as cost saving would go at all. We don't pay a huge amount on 36 Bolton Street anyway. It's the only part of the railway that we do pay rent on. We don't pay rates at all on any of the railway. So it's certainly a consideration if we do get that desperate.
Okay. David wants to come in.
Yeah, just on that point, the owner of the building is in fact a fantastic supporter of the railway. He's a very old gentleman, and I'm sure we're in his will somewhere. But the actual taking of the second floor cost us somewhere in the region of about £1,500 a year or something like that. It wasn't a big amount at all. So I take Stephen's point, but Kath's explained it.
Yeah,
whilst you're there, David, I've just had a question which you probably can answer. I'm sure you can. There are at least one person who's on tonight who doesn't actually know what the ELR Trust is. Could you just explain it quickly?
If you want me to, yes.
Quickly, David, quickly.
The ELR Trust is the 3 local authorities, Bury, Rochdale and Rossendale, who actually own the infrastructure as it stands, together with the railway is the 4th party in that. So there are 3 from the railway, which makes 12, and they are the people who in effect look after the commuted sum, which did stand at over £1 million before we priced some out of them. But that's there basically to look after the structures of the railway and give an overriding view of what the local authority expects us and how we manage the railway to keep it going. So they're fantastic supporters, although as Mike says on occasion, you can bang your head against the wall at some of the politicals that go on.
Thanks, David. I'm going to send out the next question from Toby Proctor via chat, so that if you want to read it whilst I read it out, it will make more sense to you. It's a 4-part question, a little complex. I hope somebody can answer all these questions. What is the railway strategy in regards to the global climate situation? Have the board considered how it could become or promote carbon neutral initiatives and carbon offsetting?
Can I take this, please?
Go on, Tracy.
Because this is one of my on about a precious windbag here. The biggest creeping risk to us is going to be the loss of fossil fuel in terms of diesel and coal. We're already on Russian coal. It's like rocket fuel. I'm not grumbling. It's good stuff. It's maybe a bit big, but we're already on that. But the green agenda is actually rumbling. And unless we take this by the horns, grab it and run with it, it will consume us. And where I'm going with this is, I've got Rochdale looking at potential wildlife corridors along the side of the railway, which actually we're maintaining for habitat management. Me and the conservation officer are looking for that. This week's popped up a Duke of Edinburgh project about planting saplings. Trees are railway size weeds. We all know that. However, put in the right place, they could do us a massive favour. But I'm cautious on this one because the suggestion is where Chest Wheel is, where that actual land's moving. We've got overhead power cables, which the electricity company keep coming and whacking down. But actually, by planting younger trees to get root bearing qualities in there, we could actually assist in the stabilization of the structure. I'm not saying it's the answer, but we're looking at it. But the whole situation is we've got to prove and look and be responsible and sustainable, because we are using fossil fuels to promote, actually, this is our agenda and this is what we're doing to compensate for the fact that we're actually burning fossil fuels. So I don't think realistically we want coal to disappear from or diesel locos from the railway. So we're going to have to carry on consuming that, but there are other ways that we can look after our local environment.
Thanks, Tracy. I hope.
Mike, can I just add to that, please?
Yeah, go on, Mike.
Yeah, if Whitmore's on the call tonight, I think.
Yes,
At national level, Heritage Railways have got exemptions at the moment. How long they last for, who can say? The government's pushing very, very hard towards their 2030 target for cars and all that kind of stuff. So there's a momentum being built up. But I just say that if we can get Buckley Wells off the ground, there's an intention to install solar panels and to sell the energy into the local area. Whole site will have water harvesting. The energy costs to the site currently will be free. So if we can get that scheme underway, then clearly that's a huge contribution to Berry's strategy, decarbonise by 2030, and it's a feather in the railways cap. In terms of innovation, it's considered certainly by the Mayor of Greater Manchester a green energy project, something to be very proud of.
Thanks, Mike. I'll move on to Toby's second question. What is the railway's current training strategy for safety critical roles? When might we see training recommence under acceptably safe scenarios?
I'll take that one, Mike.
Yes, Jeff.
Basically, if we do open on the 1st of May, then we'll be having training weekends, the last 2 weekends in April. That's for guards, drivers, station staff. And we're also looking at running a survey train in March. Ongoing training after that, we'll once we reopen because of COVID is over, we'll commence training as normal. So we'll be able to start training our signal boxes, our second men, our extra drivers. But until that ends, and we know where we are, there's not a lot we can do. But for the 1st of May, the last 2 weekends in April will be shakedown trains to get staff ready for the opening up on the 1st of May.
Thanks, Jeff. Moving on to the third question. What is the approach the railway is taking to engage young people above the young persons group? Have we considered the government grants for apprenticeships? Have we engaged with local colleges to set up schemes? Are we looking to do this?
Okay, do you want me to take that?
Go on, Tracy, you may help there.
Yay! There's nothing more passionate that I'm about than getting young people involved in engineering. However, we've had the green, stop board. Sorry, the red light's gone up for the stop board in the last year. However, there are all sorts of initiatives coming on, one of which is we have a mole within the camp at Berry College. Guy Berry, who's our, should we say, very friendly HR advisor, is actually doing young people education placements and also training through Berry College. So as soon as we get the green light to go ahead, there's all sorts of schemes and work placements and basically life skills that we can help young people on with. Because I think anybody who's been on the Santas knows the first week of doing the Santas with the Berry College students, majority of them don't know how to hold a conversation with anybody. But by the end of the period of time, they've actually, oh, actually, I can talk to a stranger. Yeah, crack on. Find out what they're here for, why they're doing it. So there's all those employability skills that can come through, and college links with Bury College and Derby High School are strong. So we've got all to play for as soon as we get the green light.
Thanks, Tracy. We now come to the last questions I've got for the evening at the moment, from Toby. I'm not quite sure where he's thinking about this. The board, presumably the ELR board, currently feels disconnected from the working members, and communications have taken a long time to develop into a weekly brief. How is the railway going to become open and close this gap? I'm sad to say that I'm chairman of the champions, and if you don't know who the champions are and what we're doing, then we're not doing our job very well. It has been very difficult over the last 12 months because obviously we're not meeting any of you around the railway, which was our intention to have a regular meetings and visits to talk to people and find out what the feelings are and how everybody's getting on. We've tried to combat that by hosting these open forums every couple of months in the last 12 months or so. We will continue to do these. We will, as soon as we can, from May onwards, get around the railway and talk to people. The champions, it's a strange name, but it basically means that we are the link between the departments and the management. Most of the departments are represented by at least one person on our 13-strong committee. If anybody else wants to join, please just let Nicola Rooney or myself know, or Keith Shelton, who's the administrator for the champions. We have regular meetings every couple of months. It should be 4 times a year, but we've been doing those every two months or so, trying to get viewpoints across to management. It's difficult because we're not meeting so many of you. I'm in PWA most of the time, and I am talking to some of my colleagues there, but the other departments, I had no idea what's happening in them because I'm not learning from them. Maybe Tracy wants to add something, or Mike.
Well,
about
I would be really interested to know exactly where the hole is here. We've got a weekly update going out now, and that has taken some time to come, I admit, but quite a lot of the time there wasn't actually much to report other than we're pedaling away on the bicycle of life. But department heads, Mike's got a blog. There's the safety team information that's all circulated out, the volunteer champions information, and also the society to support. So where is the information gap, and what do you actually want that void filling with?
I'm going to speak on behalf of the board. I'm going to be slightly defensive here because I think the board's doing a cracking job. Now, people disagree with that. I'd like to know what it is they're disagreeing about, because the railway's more or less been closed for several periods, extended periods. Those of you who read my blog, there's faithfully every month news from the boardroom. That's information that any working member can read. Anybody in the world of the wide web can read it because it goes out on the web. I run a Twitter. Very frequently we'll put up blogs about lockdown news. There's not a lot going on. But I think the board, I don't feel the board's remote. Perhaps I disagree with that observation. I think in my time as chair, and this is the 6th year I've been trying to be very transparent. I know there's a lot of directors on the railway every weekend. You know, we're not tucked away in some ivory tower. If there are gaps that people feel need to be plugged, and the champions was set up as a result of an ELR Open Forum at the Met Theatre. That's where the whole idea came from. The company, and as a chairman and as a general manager, we were very keen to encourage working members to get more involved with the railway, using champions as perhaps a platform. But I certainly feel we're doing as much as we can, faithfully as well. There's obviously some information we're not able to put out publicly, or shall I say even to working members. There's a lot of detail that goes on in board meetings that, you know, has to remain confidential, protect the railway. So if people are saying they don't read the blog, they don't read the Twitter, they don't read the Weekly Week, I mean, I would say Rory's on the call tonight, and there's been a huge amount of extra hops communication. Then I get told, well, I don't read hops, you know. So I think what we've got to accept is there are various strands of information being released as regularly as possible, you know. And I think if people aren't engaging with that or not aware of that, then, you know, feel free to contact the champions, because those guys will be telling us, you know, what more we need to do. So my plea is, if the view is that we're not very good at communications, then I'd like to know how people are getting the information, Mike.
I agree. We're doing the best we can, certainly in the present situation, and we will step it up in the summer as we get more access to members working around the railway during the week and at weekends. And I know that the champions would agree with me. We thoroughly not enjoyed, but we thought it was well worthwhile a year or two back when we had the Obbo for a weekend, I think, and we went up and down, talked to quite a lot of people who joined us on the carriage that day. So if
Michael,
sorry, who's this? Eileen.
Sorry, in the chat there's somebody saying about knowing who the champions actually are. Would it help if we declare the people that are here now would declare?
I was going to say, I know there are a number of the champions on board. I've got 96 people currently here. The 13 are of them are champions if they're all here. But to cut things simply, if you don't know who your departmental champion is, if you've got one, and most departments have, then most people seem to know who I am now. And mike.moore@eastlanksrailway.co.uk is my email address. And if you've got anything that you want to raise, any queries that you want to put to the management, the board, that you're not sure about, then that's a way to do it. And we will make sure it is raised either very quickly or at our next meeting, which is quite regular. Eileen has mentioned that there are a number of us around. I could go through, but it would be no point in going through the ones who are on stream tonight, because I know some are not here. But if you go on to Hops, there is a list there. And I think John Tate issues all of the minutes of our meetings with these printed material. Don't you, John?
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah.
Right. Just for 1 second. The minutes from the Society Board are issued out to no fewer than 74 different people, along with the same minutes for the VCG people. If the people who are receiving the minutes, such as heads of departments, and I'm not being disrespectful, but if they don't pass them on and cascade them down, sorry, that's where the communication problem is, or part of it.
Thanks, John.
Can I come in, Mike?
Hugh Chilton wants to say something as well. He's the administrator for the champions.
The information from the champions goes out onto Hops. And for people, if you go into operations down the side of Hops, and in operation documents, there's a section there for volunteer champions. All the information about the champions is in that area. In that area, there's also a full list of all the people, contact numbers, contact emails. So realistically, we can be contacting that way. We're also on the ELRPS website, thanks to John Tate and the people who operate that site there. We have information on there. So all our minutes are on Hops and on the ELRPS site. And like John's just said, they're issued round. So if people don't pass those on, what can we do? We're trying the very best we can to get information out to everybody, but people need to read them.
The champions don't represent the working members. They are a conduit for getting your ideas and your thoughts to the management and vice versa, so that there is a voice of the working members into management and into the running of the railway.
Yeah, but Mike, sorry to interrupt, but the problem is, if people are not passing these minutes on, how can you get anything back?
That is the point. I personally send out all the publications that come to the 70 odd members of PWA, and another 32 people who tell me they do not get information from their heads of departments, whether it be the society minutes or the weekly bulletin and so on. And some of them are not on hops as well. So I have a quite an intense distribution list of things that go out to 32 people who tell me that they do not get things from their heads of departments. So if you want to be added to that list, just email me and I'll stick you on, and you'll get David Flood's photographs, and you'll get documents from the society, and you'll get other things, some of which you may or may not want. But if you're getting no information at all, please let me know, and I'll make sure that you go onto my list and you can be included.
Yeah, Mike, can I just come in on that?
Yes, Jeff.
We often get accused that we send the information out too much. The simple fact is the minutes are on ops, and that's the place that people need to look. I'm quite happy to send emails out to everyone, but then all that we get back is you keep sending us emails. You know, it's clear the champions are putting the minutes onto ops. You can, if you want the minutes, that's where to go and find them. Those people who are not on ops, then yeah, let me know and we can send those minutes out to them. But we have to be careful that we don't send out too many emails, or the person don't get the same email of 6 or 7 different people.
Mm.
You know, so I think, John, that's for John Tate really. So we do put the minutes out there, and they are on ops. You know, what more can we do?
I quite agree, Jeff. But the problem we've got is that they've not been cascaded down.
No, but there is the option of a self-help service. So if you are on hops and you are engaged, or you are on the website, you can find it all yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to come as a direct into your inbox. You can actually use the self-help service as if you would your roster.
Yeah.
Thanks. I think Lee wants to say something.
Yeah, Mike, I was just going to ask if you or Keith can send me a list of who the champions are and which departments they're relevant to. I will put it in the weekly update tomorrow to everybody, which will go out on hops just to remind me.
Keith Shilton can do that very quickly. I know he can.
Okay,
yeah. Thanks, Keith. Yeah, we'll do that this evening. Okay, I think Duncan Bowers, he's been giving his email address out to all and sundry, but he spelt his name incorrectly. So if you want to communicate with Duncan Bowers, he's missed the N off the end.
Yeah, who's this? Sorry, it's John here, Mike.
Yes, John.
Just a very quick one about communication. Bear in mind, there are quite a number of people who don't have email and who don't have access to hops thereby. So what we're tending to do is, as a group, phoning up one another, and I think John's been doing this as well with Jeff Spencer, for instance, quite a bit, to just put them in the picture of what's going on, and I then send an email out to the rest of the people who are not on the Zoom meetings. Or
it will, of course, have been a very difficult time over the last 12 months because, for instance, John's minutes of meetings are printed out and left in certain locations for people to read. Well, if they're not coming into the railway, obviously you're not going to be seeing them. But we can't do anything about that, really. We can't afford to send 800 copies out by post every time things go out. But hopefully from May the 1st, perhaps things will improve considerably. I'm hoping that late in April, around about the 20th, 25th of April, maybe earlier than that, depending on what we decide, there will be another open forum. There's been 100 online tonight at one point. It's a long time. It was down to 92 now. I think people are going home, going to bed or watching TV or something. But
football's on, Mike.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh, yes, I was reminded earlier on that United are playing tonight, as though that's any interest. It's down to me to thank you all for coming. Thank Kath and Tracy and Mike and John and Jeff and everybody else who's contributed. Thanks for the questions that came in. There is a meeting, I think I'm right, Jeff, next Wednesday night, 7 o'clock for stations?
There is, yes, next Wednesday for stations.
Yeah.
And there's an MIC next Thursday as well.
if you've not got links, then look on Hops or email me and I'll make sure you get them for next week. If you're in stations, if you're not in stations, it might not be of great interest. Alexander, hand up.
Mike.
Sorry. Yes, Daniel first, then Alex. Yes, Daniel.
I might have missed it, but what was the a sketchy plan about the e-thanks reopening in stages?
Go on, Tracy, tell him.
Top and bottom of it is we are working through methodically the guidance, and it's pretty clear that we're clear when we can open the pubs outdoors, which is a date after the 12th of April. In terms of operational railway, we do come under a public service, a public passenger service. So we could actually open up April, but it is, I'm not going to say that we are, because we've actually missed the school holidays. Are we going to get enough revenue in? Top and bottom of it is on those weekends or midweek days to cover the operational cost. Plus, we've also got to do training and competency for people. So my best guess is we will publish our roadmap, which will be a rail map, probably next week when we've ironed down the fine elements of the detail. But we're not going to be the first railway out of the blocks. Top and bottom of it, we're not going to be keen off the mark. However, we will do it in a methodical, judged, and the best of our professional ability way of reopening. And we're doing it in a one-way passage like Boris. So there's no retraction. So we'll do it in individual stages. The earliest date for BTM will be the 17th of May, which I think is a Monday, so it won't be open that day in any case. But we're planning the map to have a month's lead time and preparation time for each individual business sector department to get ready, prepped, competencies, cleaned up, tidied up, repainted, whatever we need to do, staff training, so we're fit to go. So watch this space. But we're not doing Scotsman Easter. That's gone.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yes, Tracy.
Alex, do you want to say something?
Yeah. The City of Wales, is that going to go out for hire to any railway to get some money in for the railway?
Alex, I have dangled the carrot out to a number of railways, and nobody's biting because nobody's got the dosh these days to hire stuff in. So what basically the City of Wales will be running at Bury throughout when we start operating trains again, and it'll be out quite a bit because obviously it's a cheap engine in terms of hire fees for the railway to use, and that's important in the financial, building our finances back up to try and keep the cost down to a minimum.
Oh, okay.
That's a question of Jeff. Will the big trains be able to run up to Rottenstall following the track work at Irwell Vale?
The simple answer is yes. Yes.
Okay.
Fine. I'm going to call a close now. We've had an hour and 20 minutes or so. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you to all those who've contributed, all those who've put questions. And I look forward to seeing you sometime in April. As I said earlier, if you've got any queries, comments or whatever, just email me and I'll do my best to provide a solution. So good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.